After COVID, I get into e-commerce. So that's how I diversified my skill set. Now I'm working with an organization that is driving all their sales online, right? But you're talking about the massive funnel. You're talking about a $700 million organization, wheels, tires, and suspension. I oversee their sales team, but I also oversee a sales team of 30 individuals, customer service team of over 200 people. And now I'm working over a call center, and that's part of my background we didn't get into. I've also been a phone representative. I've been a call center employee. I worked at East Bay, hundreds of people in that call center. I worked at what was Silver Star Brands. It was
what's cool though is like
hundreds of people.
Going back to working with my dad, working concrete construction, all the different jobs you've held throughout your entire career, running a gym. It seems like you've really done a phenomenal job of taking little tidbit skills, little bits of growth and development in each experience you've had, and somehow now it's morphed into this super diverse, high performance marketing executive, right? Yeah. But it definitely wasn't just like one experience that was the epiphany. It's a lot of little epiphanies that have,
It's crazy. Because I think that, if I were to kind of quantify it, it's almost like I went to college in the moment, like real life experience was my college. I just did it for, 15 years. And so I start working at these call centers, and I see what a high-powered call center looks like.
You take ownership over your role, like your role in the company. You take ownership of it, because in a lot of situations you've been thrown at, you truly are. It's like building a business within the business.
Yep.
And that's how I love when you talk about building a face-to-face marketing division. It's almost like building a separate arm of your business within your business. Yeah. And that's what you've done really well.
And one of the coolest things that I picked up from the e-commerce job is that's where I was introduced into like a really top-flight marketing program. Shout out to that marketing team. There was hundreds of people that worked in marketing there, and they were beasts.
Proofs in the numbers.
They were just beasts, man. And
well, today they're probably doing over $1 billion a year. Right?
Yeah, and there's like during COVID, that was another thing where they got influx of cash because everybody was buying wheels and tires for their cars when that was going on. The project management side of things, they do lean marketing management over there. And so I got introduced to those concepts and campaigns and marketing campaigns. And I developed those from a sales standpoint. We're doing campaigns and project management in the sales side of things. Now I use a lot of those skills in developing my own marketing campaigns. I mean, I just fired out a marketing campaign that's 24 pages long for Matrix Home Solutions for the month of July. And it literally quantifies every projection, every spend that we have, where our leads are going to come from. You have this basic foundation of lead generation that you're going to do, that whether it's organic traffic to your website, it's traffic to your website, it's fueled by metrics and different drivers, so to speak, where you got to have your finger on the pulse of literally a million different things when we're talking marketing, and being able to quantify that, being able to put your stamp on that so you don't lose control or lose sight of all the things that are happening at one time. That's what I really got from that role. I picked that up from there, and I was able to do that. But building a face-to-face team, that's still like my bread and butter, right? That's like something I can do in my sleep. Training people, getting people to be successful, at that is my biggest strong suit.
Look, because I talk to companies probably once a week at least right now where they're considering starting that process. Mm-hmm. So obviously without doing a full clinic, getting deep into the weeds, like what would you deem as like the first few steps in order to get started getting into the face-to-face marketing game, whether it's start off canvassing, start off shows and events, and how do we best maximize that?
Well, I think from a fiscal standpoint, canvassing is the one that makes the most sense for anybody. I mean, what does it take? You take some door hangers, you take some appointment reminders, you can have that person use their vehicle, you can do 1099s. There's software out there that's literally managing that person as they're in the field. It tracks their whereabouts, it tracks their lead setting.
Because a lot of people have a pretty negative attitude towards canvassing. It's like they hear the word canvassing, like owners, and it's just like, it seems overwhelming because I think they think managing more people, right? They're like, oh man, I just don't know if I want to manage all those people. So, but you're talking about all these tools and resource and technology that help you better hold people accountable without having to babysit 24/7, you know?
No, and I have friends in this industry, without saying names, because I'm about to say that we got into arguments when we were having a few of the bourbons, you know, and he's like, I would never canvas, you know?
Well, I talk about this all the time in sales because outside salespeople in this industry actually do not have to experience rejection often. It's rare. Like, we do experience it. Like, every now and then you get someone say, get the F out of my house, or you either leave or I'm calling the cops. Like, you know, when you overstayed your welcome, or maybe you started becoming confrontational because you said something silly. Yeah. But in canvassing, and the reason why, by the way, is because you got a preset appointment. They're expecting you. They're already mentally prepared. You're not interrupting them in their day-to-day routine, right? With canvassing, you get hit with true rejection by the hundreds and hundreds and constantly. So the amount of, I heard somebody describe it as you have to grow alligator skin, you know, like developing that thick skin, that obstacle immunity. So I love and admire people that I train in sales that came from a canvassing background, because these people are not lead babies. They are some of the strongest sales warriors out there. And they do wear that as a badge of honor.
Some of the most successful Mad City sales reps right now are coming from there. Yeah. And there's countless companies out there that do that as a feeding system to their program. Power Home Remodeling they have a feeder system, and they have this mentorship program. It's almost, it's crazy how they've built this out, but you start face-to-face, you start canvassing, you start in events, then you get elevated in the sales position. And obviously, proof's in the pudding there. They're one of the most successful companies for the last 20 years, right? And it is that camaraderie. It is just, and you're talking about the money. So on these Facebook groups, people are posting what these comp structures look like. And there's canvassers out there making a lot more money than I make.
Yes.
And we're talking about like $500,000, $1 million a year, canvassing doors, selling solar, or selling really large roofing systems and different things like that. And it's wild to even hear these types of numbers that are being thrown around. But I think that's why it's so intimidating for these business owners to start up a canvas team, because they don't know that. I'm a part of that community. Yeah. So I know inherently, to get top flight door knockers, you're going to have to pay decent wages. You're going to have to have good benefits. You're going to have to, if you want to get the right types of people, but you're not going to pay minimum wage. I think that's the biggest eye-opening thing for anybody who starts their team right off the bat is you're not going to get guys for minimum wage. You're not going to get them for $10 a lead. That's not how this works. They got to see, now granted, you could have no base at all and have it be 100% commission and make it incredibly lucrative, and a top flight door knocker is going to see it for what it is. But if they can't see themselves being successful and making a lot of money doing it, usually they're not going to do it. But we talked about at the beginning of this conversation, you got to be comfortable being a leader and a follower at the same time. This is the same thing, but in context, you have to be both a canvasser and a leader if you're going to run a canvas team. I've never seen any canvas manager ever be successful without knocking a door. I've never seen the ivory tower work for anybody who is running a canvassing team. As recent as, last week, months ago, I'm out in 90-degree weather over in Southwest Michigan in Kalamazoo. And he hit the ground running. Shout out Chance. He's hit the ground running over there as a canvasser. He's a military veteran, a fantastic dude, but he was just not seeing the results of door knocking. And I hired him for what he was. And he was unseasoned, never had a sales role, but he had that worker's mentality, the wrestler's mentality, we can even call it. And all I had to do was go out there, and I'm knocking doors with him in person, and I took the entire day for him to shadow me and just say, just watch me, man. Yeah. If I look at you, and if they address you, pipe up, you can bring some levity to the situation, but just watch what I do. And by the end, I saw this light switch just clicked. And he was like, I've been selling myself off the porch the entire time. Like, I'm not doing anything inherently so much different than you. I just don't push that extra. I use any opportunity to get off the porch as what it is, an opportunity to get off the porch, whereas I use it, as an opportunity to maybe sharpen the axe a little bit more, go back in, clean up the wounds a little bit and go back in. But it's about that rejection that you're talking about. I wish I would have canvassed before I was dating in college.
Yeah, right.
I would have been a lot more successful in that endeavor.
Canvassing, the thing that I admired about what you did, and maybe this is because of what you saw going on in the sales, is you created a very high-level professional training program with scripting, with methodology, and anybody that came in for that canvassing, they felt like they were part of a high-level professional opportunity. It wasn't just like, here's a bunch of addresses, go knock doors and sink or swim. It was like you bring them in, you train them, you coach them, you support them. So I think that's one thing, the message I take away from this is if you're starting to build a canvassing division, it's not just hiring a bunch of canvassers and throwing them out to the wolves. It's just like in sales, just like in any department, make sure you invest in quality training and methodology. You have a method to the madness. Make that training and onboarding experience professional. Because me personally, and you can tell me if you agree, I want to instill a high level of belief in this individual that is now working for my company early on. I want them to believe in the company that they represent, believe in the products and services that we're launching, believe in leadership. And the more high level and professional I can make that onboarding and training experience, the more belief they have in every door they knock. It's not just going through the motions. Like, they don't want to let the company down. They want to make sure that they're giving their best performance at every door they go to, right? So I think that's really, really important.
Well, and even half of it is just what's between the ears, right? Half of it, 80%, 90%. I'm throwing around made up statistics now, but
yeah.
So but it's when you're knocking doors, it's all about the mentality. If you feel good, you look good, you're gonna do good. And I think that when I started as a canvas manager, it was clear to me that there was literally no rhyme or reason to what I was doing there.
Yeah.
It was not structured. I was sitting in an office. This was with Mad City. I was sitting in an office for 3 hours. The first day I was there, nobody addressed me. They said, okay, we're going out. And now I'm in a canvas van. That was my first day. 3 hours of sitting around, nobody talked to me. I remember the canvasser that I was shadowing that day, 13 leads that first day, and I thought it was going to be the easiest thing that I'd ever done. I had already sold windows and baths. I'd already sold for Mad City. I'm like, this is ridiculous, And it was like a cigarette after every door, but it was just kind of like rough around the edges. I'm like, okay. So I go to pitch a customer. That first day, he goes, okay, if you think it's going to be easy, then go right ahead. And I fell flat on my face. Like, I was so bad. And I got nervous. I got choked up. I could barely talk. Because I don't know if you've ever gone to like a speech unprepared or something where it's going to take influence and you don't know what you're going to say. Yeah. That's a nervous situation, right? So I immediately get nervous and I'm like, this is a weird feeling for me. And they had a script at the time, but it was so photocopied. It was like the Grosso material when you had it. It was so photocopied. It was like, you could tell it had gone through it might have even gone through a person's wash, and they're just giving me this. And they're like, here you go. There's like coffee stains on it or whatever. And I'm like, this is, but the material, I saw merit in it because I'd already, gone through the Grosso material. I had already written my own material for State Farm. I had already, done so many different things. And I saw merit in it. I'm like, oh, trial close. This is it. This is a great introduction. I see what we're doing here. We're appealing to the Jones effect, like all this stuff, like psychologically that was there. And I'm like, okay, this makes sense. So I went home that night and I memorized that script. Like, I did not.
You found your quiet place. You
exactly.
Download the information.
Yep. So I was my kitchen table. I had this big metal glass kitchen table. Sat down there and I recorded myself. I also tend to do this when I need to memorize things. It's always about study guides or recording myself so I have a training video or I have a training study guide. By the time I was done in college with that study guide, I knew the material, right? By the time I was done with that training video, I almost knew the material. So what I had done is I wrote it down and I read it. Then I'm flipping over the pages. Then I'm, writing it on one side, memorizing line by line. So I get done with that, and now I have verbatim, off the top of my dome, I have that training video. Yeah. So I was training in Madison, as you well know, is about a 2.5 hour drive from where I was located up in Green Bay, well, close to Green Bay. And so 2.5 hours, I'm listening to my voice. I literally listened to it the entire way down there, just over and over and over and over. And then I got there and Jesse's there again. He's having a cigarette outside and he's, okay, you ready today? And he's got a smirk on his face. He's like, this doofus was terrible yesterday. Let's see if he can redeem himself. So the first door, I just remember being like, okay, step aside, dude. This is, okay, step aside, man. And I set that first lead. So then they release me. Nathan says, okay, I think your training's done. I get up to Green Bay and I walk into my office and there's, the hell is this guy? Nobody told him I was coming. So there must be your stuff back there. You got your computer back there. There was no chair. There's literally a desk and a computer. I start unpacking my stuff. I grab a chair from the conference room and I sit at this desk. It was a plastic chair and I'm sitting at this desk, got my computer up. I have no access to anything, just a random computer. Like I don't have access to the CRM. Maybe I made a poor choice. Like what do I do? From that moment forward, it clicked for me. I said, well, this is what you make it. This is what you make it. Like you're going to be here and you've already come this far. You took the leap, which is the difficult part sometimes anyways. All you have to do is apply everything that you picked up over the years to this situation. And, it worked out well. But along the way, and you asked me, and this was a long-winded way to say, you got to find that person that's okay being uncomfortable to run the team, right? If you're going to start in canvassing, like I suggest you start in canvassing because the overhead's very small. But find that person that's going to own their position, like you said. That's going to own their position. They're going to own the success or failures. They're going to roll up their sleeves. They're going to knock doors. I mean, I was knocking doors 10 hours a day at that time, like morning. And then I'd come in the morning and call on resumes. I was cold calling resumes like my insurance days. I was calling on prospects, right? Like every person that I get in front of me, across from me, and I was using the exact same scripting I had in insurance to get people sitting in front of me for interviews. They didn't know that it was me selling them on the position because it's a door knocking position. Who the hell wants to do that? So you got to find that person that has that skill set, but there's got to be a roadmap. I didn't have a roadmap, so my mental fortitude was already built up over time. I was waking up at 45 minutes of sleep in a parking lot before your insurance job will make you pretty resilient to adversity, right? So I'm like coming in there every day and I'm like, well, what's the worst that could happen, right? I mean, if I'm knocking doors for 10 hours, I mean, at least I'm going to get some exercise in. If people are cussing me out, that says more about them than it does me.
And take it personally.
And then just took it and kind of ran with it. But again, tying it back to the business owner that's looking to do this, you don't have to find the perfect person, but you need to have that. Like I see on somebody's resume that they're a wrestler. Hey, this guy's probably got what it takes. Or you look for certain things and just interacting with somebody. Find that person. But at the end of the day, it's just find that person that's accountable to their metrics, but they can also, overcome that adversity. But you had already said, like, you have some people walking into places and they don't see the forest through the trees, right? And that's what I tried to build because I never wanted anybody to feel like that when they started with Mad City, when they started with our organization. I'm probably the only person on the planet that wouldn't see this as an opportunity to leave, to shut it down, to not do it, right? Imagine any normal human being walking into that situation, like sitting there by themselves on a borrowed chair from the conference room. Nobody's talked. They didn't even know I was coming up there. And now just sitting there, like, I saw it as like freedom. Like, this is okay. I can make the type of money.
Well, there's great pride and fulfillment in building and creating something, right? This is why to people that build houses and stuff or do construction and the home improvement industry, there's a great pride that we can all take in building and creating and kind of paving our own legacy. But you saw those opportunities where a lot of people would be too afraid. Their fear would prevent there's fear of the unknown. There's a lot of unknown factors, like where the hell is this going to lead to? Where am I going? But it's really belief in yourself that you can make things happen. When you're given lemons, you make lemonade, so to speak.
Well, that's kind of when, you approached me about the Grosso stuff when I used to consult with you guys. You approached me about it. You said, And public speaking, has kind of I've been terrified of it for a long time. I don't even know if you know that, but I am. Like, I don't know why. I just get that nervous feeling, that unprepared feeling, but preparedness has always been, I've been able to overcome that by becoming prepared. But you came to me with it, and I remember what you said. You're just like, well, dude, you just know all of it. Like, you just go up there and, you're so comfortable with it, you'll do fine. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. I think the way that I've formulated a lot of the stuff that I've done is just by me actually doing it, and then just kind of being able to eloquently forward that to somebody to tell them, like, this is how you do it. Yeah. But then seeing them being able to do it, that's why I always want to go into coaching sometime. When life slows down a little bit, I think I'll coach some Little League baseball or something.
Yeah.
Because just seeing people take instruction or be successful for themselves. When I was over in Southwest Michigan, when that light switch flipped, I was just like, yes, that's a good feeling. And for business owners that are looking to do this, they got to see it for what it is, because digital advertising is not going down in price. In fact, I mean, our cost per lead on digital advertising is going up. We're not immune to it. I'm very efficient in terms of spend. Again, you can't be, and I'm humble too, because a lot of the business owners out there they're spending their own money, right? And you get into this, if you try something out and it doesn't work, they almost have too much pride to stop doing it.
Yep.
I've been wrong so many times, dude. I don't care if I'm wrong, to be honest. Not for the fact that I'm not spending my own money, but but you know how it is. You're an entrepreneur. You run this business. If you spend money and like you seem to be tied, like the sunk cost fallacy, right? And marketing mixes are getting so bloated because people are trying to, but it worked before, or that's all that I did before. And it's just like, unless you're going off a repeat referral, word of mouth type stuff, I don't think because I did it before has any merit in marketing.
Right.
It's insanely
dynamic. The reality is the world is changing. The industry is changing. Everything is, I mean, especially with the influx of technology, because what's going on now, the home improvement industry is historically decades behind the rest of the world in terms of adopting technology. But now it's the opposite, where we are the first major industry getting 100% disrupted by technology and AI, especially.
Private equity has that,
and
that's why
you can't compete.
Private equity. All of these companies that are being acquired right now, that's kind of the name of the game for our industry. And private equity is swooping in, and they're like, you know why it was so appealing? Is because the companies that they're purchasing were so unsophisticated, they could make some surface level improvements with technology or AI or call center, whatever that may be, and its efficiencies. And they're like, well, if you're currently at a 10% marketing spend, we're going to pump cash from a marketing side into this business. We're going to increase productivity and efficiency with technology and AI and all these other things. And they look like absolute geniuses, right? And that's becoming smaller and smaller percentage of the companies that are still alive in this business. This economy is killing companies that don't do that. And they're definitely not getting acquired, right? So the monopolization of this industry is it's going to continue. I don't see it stopping, but really it's a monopolization of companies that are technologically savvy or advanced, or they're going to,
Yeah, I've heard a lot of these PE companies talk and, events and stuff like that. And they're basically training technology is going to rule the day. And companies that don't invest in the right training and technology to take their company to an optimal level. And I did a podcast or a webinar with Business Success Consulting Group and talking about creating systems and processes. So having the systems and processes documented and optimized in every department in your organization, and then making sure you know how to train those systems and processes to its fullest extent, because you could have it documented, but if you can't train it for shit, you're kind of left with nothing, right? And then leveraging technology to its fullest extent, because a lot of people are saying that AI right now, for example, is going to be more disruptive than the internet. So just imagine trying to compete with anybody now, just saying, I'm not going to use the internet. at all. Like, you can't compete.
There were certain people that wouldn't have email for the longest time. I remember I was a guy who said, "Oh, texting, that's stupid. I'm not going to text.
Yes.
Why wouldn't you just have a phone
Just
call?
call them.
Why wouldn't you just have a phone call?" And now my brother was a early adopter of text, even so much so that my parents got the overage charges when you had your cell phone, when you had the flip phones and you like had to hit 3 like 10 times for an E or whatever, you know? And so he was writing like thousands of text messages a month, and my parents would get that bill and they'd be like, "You guys," and I'm like, "Hey, I'm not I hate texting. It's never going to catch on."
Old phones where none of it made sense, you know?
And then they got the QWERTY keyboard. You remember that? Where you slide it up and it just...
And it actually made sense. Like,
I'm like, okay, I could deal with this. And yeah, and then the rest is history. Now when somebody calls me, I go, I'll deny it, and then I'll text them right back, you know?
So we know face-to-face marketing, canvassing specifically, is a great idea. And don't just wing it, you know, make sure you get the systems, the processes in place. Make sure when you're launching a canvassing division that you're doing it like you would do any other department. Make sure you have the training, the methodology, the processes, and anyone you're bringing in, like you said, you know, seek out those professionals that can deliver high levels of productivity. We are pleased to announce our all-new Grosso University 60-Day Challenge. For the first time ever, we are inviting companies nationwide to enroll a salesperson and a sales leader into our next Sales Academy Masterclass absolutely free. Our team of legendary trainers will take them through our comprehensive 2-week sales training, where every student will be tested and certified as a sales warrior. After the live training event, every sales warrior will also receive a full 60-day trial access to all of our Sales Academy Masterclass services, which will give them access to our industry-leading online sales training platform, access to our live weekly sales meetings from our certified coaches, and one-on-one product-specific training and support to guarantee that every salesperson truly turns into a shining star in the industry. The best part is you can experience all of this training absolutely free with no obligation. Schedule a call today with one of our representatives and learn how Grosso University can easily become the sales training arm of your business and take your company to the next level. I'm honored to announce that this November 14th and 15th, Grosso U will be hosting our 3rd annual Growth and Profitability Summit. Join us at the stunning Omni Resort and Spa in Amelia Island. You'll learn all about lead generation and conversion, leveraging the latest and greatest technologies, and the proven strategies for streamlining your operational efficiency. Network with industry leaders, forge valuable relationships, and return back to your business equipped to make 2025 a year of abundance and prosperity. Are you ready to build an apex level company? Reserve your seat at the Agogi Growth and Profitability Summit today and lead the future of the home improvement industry. But I'm curious, one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, what are some of the technologies that you've implemented in your marketing division or in your company in general that you feel made a huge impact on your business, your efficiency, your cost of marketing? What are some of those things that you did implement or are currently working to implement that you feel made the biggest difference?
Realistically, you know, if we're talking about face-to-face, I'll split it up. Face-to-face marketing, it is those sales rabbit Spotio applications that allow remote management of teams, accountability to the metrics, you know, the training platforms that allow videos and training and modules and different things like that, that allow a systematic approach to training. So when it's almost like an assembly line of...
So I remember you used to make even just selfie videos of, you know, and one thing I used to do is while I was training people, because this is before we had high level videography and stuff, at Mad City, when I was training my sales team actively, I would just set a cell phone camera up in the corner or whatever camera and just film me training, and I would turn that into modules. Right. So then after the training, they could go through post-training molding, support, and education, because even if you give the best training ever, they don't retain all of it.
And now it's even like, you know, face-to-face and scripted stuff, right? When you're talking about scripted sales methodology is one thing. You know, here's the script. I'm going to do the script. I'm going to take a video of myself doing the script. When you start getting into leadership management, it's a little bit, it's crazier. You have to have systems and processes. And now you have this sheet right here is where I track metrics. I have a scorecard for this role. I have a scorecard for this role. And it manages accountability and performance metrics, right? That's what I picked up from the project management side of things and campaigns. But I think that just that visibility, that accountability, because when it boils down to it, it's about human capital. It's about their ability to be as successful as possible in a very short period of time. That's what makes door knocking and canvassing successful. That's why I didn't say events, like, because you got to get banners, you got to get pull-up banners, you got to get displays, you got to get literature, you got to get brochures, you got to get a table, tablecloths. It's like stupid how much stuff goes into that. We have checklists this long to get ready for an event or a home show.
But like your experience, once you ramp up the canvassing division, then it gives you the foundation to really springboard your face.
Well, and even at Matrix, I like this last weekend, and the reason why I say canvas is nothing that you can do, even purchasing leads from aggregators, you make like flip a switch and you have a lead tomorrow. Like I could go out as a business owner and look, no offense, but most business owners and every business owner I've ever met won't do this. You could knock a door tomorrow and get a lead for tomorrow or today. If I have a sales rep that's not in a 6 o'clock appointment, I could call up, my guy in Southwest Michigan and be like, dude, we need a same day basement set in Michigan. And he'll be like, all right, I'm already on it. I'm in this neighborhood. And I'm like, I look at his Sales Rabbit app and I look at that he's there. And I'm like, you get that next day, you can give him a spiff, you can give him an incentive. It's just a instantaneous gratification in terms of that lead setting ability. Like there's nothing else that you can do that you're not going to get an aggregator to send you a lead tomorrow. There's all these integrations and there's all these pathways in your CRM, or I'm going to run a Facebook ad, do a selfie video on a Facebook ad, call now, 10% off. And, it's not going to happen. It's just, and it's just, we open the floodgates at Matrix and, it's 80 additional leads on a weekly basis from Canvas. It's like, those are crazy. That's crazy.
Well, especially with an average ticket like Matrix has.
High intent, but it's high intent and no competition. Let's be real. Post that Facebook ad. That person that called on your Facebook ad is the same person that calls on everybody's Facebook ad. It's not like they're just calling you. Unless you have the best branded company in the market, you have some differentiators and you're able to say this is why we're better, or you've been there for 50 plus years. They have this huge array of companies that they can choose from. And sometimes it's the more money you spend on Google, for example, you're the one that's called because you spent more money. Now, some people out there, that will be overwhelming for, Joe's Home Improvement that has 12 employees. I mean, if you take a look at some of the companies that I run into, you talked about Sheila earlier, right?
Yep.
She runs a smaller company down in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and she's got to compete against the behemoths. We're talking about $500 million organizations in her backyard. How does she do that successfully? Well, anybody can send a really personable guy out or gal to go knock doors, and you get a lead that other company didn't even touch.
Yeah.
Where else can you say that?
Well, that's where my salespeople, when we first started getting introduced to canvassing leads, it was a learning curve, right? Because canvas leads, the challenge is there's not as much built-in desire urgency to own your product now. So you don't have that need, want, or desire right this second. They're curious, they're open-minded to it, but they're definitely, in some cases, not in the market at all. They're just getting ideas, or maybe the person at the front door gave them enough information just to be curious, and the price is only good for a year, so what's the harm in it? But then as they got used to creating that need, want, desire, that urgency, and they got really good at how to handle a canvas lead differently, and the system's the same, but you have to put greater emphasis on the things that aren't necessarily a given like they are for other lead sources, right? Mm-hmm. If someone's calling me saying, I want your product, it became the most desirable lead source of all of them because they're like, holy crap, these are completely non-competitive. I can mold this situation to my favor. It's a lot easier to influence them in the direction which I want them to go. And profitability was typically better on canvas leads because it wasn't as price driven, So
Terry's sales rep for Man City I said, I'll only run canvas leads.
Yeah.
So
it went from in the beginning because people had to change what they were used to, there are little growing pains there, but it went from bitching and moaning about canvas leads to now everyone wants the canvas leads, right? Yeah. And that's important for everyone to know. It's not necessarily you turn this on and it's all sunshine and rainbows. The Canvas team, of course, needs high-level training, and there's some mental toughness.
But it's
that goes along
also
with
a
that.
cultural thing because there are organizations that I've gone into when I was doing the consulting with you, and it's cultural. They've had Canvas teams already existing that were a cancer. They're a cancer, okay? And that's you run the risk of bringing in the wrong people or not giving them the roadmap, and they just flying by the seat of their pants, like developing a really toxic environment in a very short period of time. So it's that regimented team that really gets the job done. I mean, there's some of the top flight companies in this entire country that run some of the most buttoned up Canvas teams, but I've seen their training literature. It's on point. It's amazing, right? And I've actually borrowed some of it.
Yeah, and your salespeople, if you give them an inch, they'll take a mile. So if you start onboarding a bunch of low-level, poorly, low professional, a bunch of these amateurs with no training, and they go out there and start making all these false promises, they start setting terrible leads, they don't set them properly, that just gives your salespeople a thread to pull onto, where now it's like, oh, marketing is intentionally giving me all these bad situations, and then they're like, screw this company, and then all of a sudden their belief in the entire organization goes to crap, which affects their performance. It's just like, the chain's only strong as its weakest link. So make sure that if you're looking to launch face-to-face canvassing, just as serious as you would train any position in your company, that you treat that just as serious, because it does impact it tremendously. And this is where you and I thrive together, right? Because I knew my process and I believed in it. You built and knew your process. I knew your training was on point. You knew my training was on point. We communicated constantly. And it's like, you tee them up, I'll knock them down. We knew we were both in good hands, And having that steady stream of communication, that relationship, I felt was very important.
I call you up. I set a Canvas lead yesterday. Dude, your guy was out in 30 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's take care of that, man.
Yeah. And it's not sales versus marketing, marketing versus sales. It's both teams working together to achieve it.
And that's the other thing that needs to be said too, is because it is a learning curve. Your sales reps are immediately going to say, they're going to start blaming it on leads. And it's not me against sales. I'm just telling you, I've seen this dozens of times.
I've lived it.
Where they're just like, these are shit leads. Like, they're not even thinking about doing it for another 10 years. And it's like, the person literally let you into their house.
You remember this when we first launched canvassing at Mad City. It was like 15%
Brutal
closing.
Brutal.
Yeah. I'm like, how is that possible? And then I'm like, we got to work. I felt I had to take responsibility for how do we better train and equip these salespeople and hammer through the thick skull. This is not the same as the TV leads that they've been exposed to.
And that's not the typical response. I've been with other sales leaders in this organization, and their typical response is, your canvassers suck. And I'm just like, dude, I am right behind. I'm going to go out and set some myself just to test that theory, because I know I don't suck. I've made enough money to, made enough money doing this to tell me if that was the currency, if that was my grade, I've done okay. It's not the leads. Like, if you can, what creates a good lead?
Well, decision makers are present. They own the home. They currently do not own your product, but mostly the salesperson, you.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. It was always, how can we work together to be successful on these leads? Because this is going to be, like I said, I'm going to make you choke on leads. I'm going to make it 50% of the business, 80% of the business. And
I had experience on what goes into generating canvassing leads, so I didn't take those for granted. I'm like, we got to crack the code on this now.
Once you can generate those quality leads, it takes a culture of accountability, because you will have canvassers generating path of least resistance leads. They're just shit. They will send in terrible leads. Okay. If you let them, and that person's that's sitting by themselves at their computer, at the desk with a script, you got to create a culture of accountability, and it's just more motivating if you can give somebody the tools to succeed. So Canvas, that's where I would start. I mean, at the end of the day, it's all about instant gratification from a lead standpoint. Like, hopefully you're not in a dire straits. Like, you don't have to have 100 leads by tomorrow, but if you need one or two, I mean, the Canvas is probably the best way to go.
Yeah. So, and obviously the reason why we're starting from canvassing is you want to talk about a marketing source that you feel has a very robust return on your investment. That's going to be one of the better ones out there. Because Josh, I mean, I've talked to companies that have a 30% cost of marketing, 25% cost of marketing. some that have a 8% cost of marketing. So it says like on one hand, companies are highly efficient, but you could also argue that maybe they can get more aggressive with their marketing spend. Yeah. But some are just throwing all this money at who the hell knows, and they're not realizing, profitability. I think I read an article, industry-wide, the average net profit is about 4%.
What's the name of this podcast?
Yeah, Profits for Sanity, right? So this is why this is an important topic, right? But people need the coaching and guidance. This isn't like, I'm going to start a canvassing division, just start randomly hiring people and throw them out there. Make sure that you invest in the foundational elements, the training, the tools, the methodology. You get some professionals in there. Treat this as a professional opportunity. Like you said, it's not what people imagine canvassing to be. This is a low-level profession. This is like the redheaded stepchild of the industry. Treat it, and again, these people, if you want them to go out there and be the face of your brand, a lot of cases they're the first people they call them brand ambassadors a lot of times, right? That is important. And again, if you don't have high-level professional training for your canvassing team and they don't go out there and deliver that 5-star experience, that's going to impact sales inevitably. Your sales rep's mindset is going to be impacted by that. So across the board, from phone call to install, everywhere in between, from that first interaction, like at Grosso University, I don't think of marketing as a department personally. I think my whole company's marketing. Yeah. Anytime any one of my companies talking to anyone, that's marketing, because they could say something stupid. I could say something stupid at any point, whether I'm in a lead gen or a sales environment. That could affect my brand image.
It's not as catchy as ABC, always be closing. It's ABM.
Yeah, always be marketing. Yeah, exactly. So now just tell us a little bit more about Matrix Home Solutions, because we've name dropped Matrix Home Solutions about 100 times. But what do you guys do, and kind of what are you forecasted to do in the coming years? Like, what's your goal, your vision for the future?
Like I said, I think that diversification of marketing is exponentially important as it pertains to like our go-forward strategy. It's crazy to think that we're in a situation where marketing spend for some of the larger companies, I know I have contacts in the entire industry, and I'm getting into this. Like, I was a face-to-face guy. I kind of downplay my progression a little bit, but I'm a face-to-face guy at heart, canvas, events, home shows at heart. But I'm trying to get into this. I was elevated to CMO, earlier this year, and I'm kind of getting into this at the most tumultuous time, the most difficult time, and I like it. It's we had talked about earlier, challenges, right? Now if it's not challenging, it's boring to me, right? And this is a lot to absorb. There's some pretty big problems to solve from a market headway standpoint as we move into 2024 and 2025, election cycle and different things like that, and competing against people on TV, even if we take it down to the rudimentary level of like, now we're competing against other sources for people to spend their time and attention. Marketing is time and attention, right? That's the currency that we have, and it's our skill set that makes that time and attention influential on the prospect, right? So what we spend our time on is more and more controlled by not the consumer, but the marketer, right? You're scrolling through Facebook, and all of a sudden you're seeing a video, you're seeing a reel, you're seeing an ad, you're watching a YouTube video. I'm looking that exact second when I can skip the ad before I can watch my video on the Brewers, the Bucks, or whatever I'm watching, So our trajectory, we have gotten back to my roots, because for a while there, because it was lesser known and it was more challenging to me, I dove fully into like the digital side of things, the content creation. We do a heck of a lot of content. We do a lot of branding.
Can you speak on that for a second? Because some of the most successful companies I've talked to recently are investing a lot into creating content. Mm-hmm. So why do you feel that's important? Whether it be a podcast, a YouTube channel, some will have their own radio channel. Mm-hmm. Why do you feel like getting content out there as a company is going to be important in the coming years?
Well, I think it's just from a trust factor, just if we're talking about like surface level for the consumer. There's a lot of companies out there, like I said, that are going to be experts in that field, right? And if you're thinking about, are you in the region, wherever you're doing business, the expert? Are you going to be the company? If you're not the top 2 to 3 companies that in your area Like, how do you get your name out there as an expert? You look at, and it's so competitive now, like we had said, everybody is buying Google advertisements. Everybody is purchasing ads on Facebook.
The good news is, though, and this is to the point that we're talking about, almost nobody that I meet has what I would describe, because again, Grosso is very much a content creation company. I don't even know how many hundreds of hours of content. That's what we've morphed into. I actually describe us as a content creation company. That's who we are.
We're doing it right now.
We're doing it right now. But
you're welcome.
Yeah, I've seen where very few companies have any content at all. Just by investing in quality content is going to put you in a very small percentage of the companies that exist today. Multi-billion-dollar corporations, I've seen that their content is really bad. I'm like, so, and it's not that hard to get a videographer to follow you around. And what you're doing at Matrix Home Solutions is amazing. You're doing because you do very high-level basement remodeling projects that it's like, think of your dream basement coming to life. And you do these very detailed walkthroughs, and people love that shit. It's like, just like HGTV, how many millions of hours of remodeling shows that people downloaded in the last 10 years? So you can get them the behind the scenes, because ultimately every potential prospect or customer needs to visualize that experience hypothetically before they make a decision in reality. And that what that's doing, to your point, it's really building on that trust before you even enter that house. So the salesperson's already walking in with a lot of momentum and credibility.
Right. And it can be, and you're talking about efficiency, right? And I think that evergreen content, if you want to use that, there's an exponential amount of ways that you can use evergreen content, right? Whether it's retention, let's just even go down that route. So if we're talking about a good email campaign and retention and drip campaigns and things of that nature, if you are implementing a robust and influential email campaign, you're going to be hitting people at different statuses or dispositions, where if you have set the appointment, you're going to send them a reminder email, and you can embed some content that's evergreen. Like maybe it's your CEO, maybe it's the owner of your company saying, hey, thank you for considering Matrix Home Solutions for your next home improvement project. We are the #1 basement remodeler in the entire country. And if you didn't know, here's why. So many folks have considered Matrix Home Solutions. And you literally have that explainer video embedded right into their email. And now that person feels like they are not just getting a quote. Mm-hmm. It's an entire experience. We're sending an architecturally savvy designer out to your home and trained designer out to your home to design a space like we've done at so many other 10,000 plus customers' homes. And that number, 10,000 homes, then you hit them with some of your more impressive projects. And now that person's wheels are turning. They're not like looking at that appointment as something that is going to be painful and it needs to be done. They're looking at it as an opportunity to really, get a good service. We're giving a service to that customer, and we're solving some problems that they may have. Now, if you're in a service-based business that is not as sexy as like basements, where we're building theaters and bars and game rooms and all this other cool stuff, right?
You do some creative things with the space too.
Yeah, but if you have window siding, you do exterior stuff, it's the same thing. No, you could literally say like it's those pain points that you're trying to call out with what are we solving for the consumer, and you hit that with some influential content. That's just one area. You have your sales rep maybe introduce themselves before they go out to the appointment so that the prospect knows them by face, and you're hitting them with that. So retention of appointments. Also, if we're talking about retention of sales, cancellations, and different things like that, if you sign a contract with somebody and here's the next steps, you're going to do an explainer video, you launch some content in there. Like it's evergreen stuff, and you can check off so many boxes with different content. For me, on-page, off-page SEO, when you're talking about your domain authority for your business's website, just the transcripts of your videos is going to be taken into consideration when Google's crawling your website to be more seen as more, because Google, they're trying to put themselves with a bunch of algorithms, not to get too far into the weeds, into the mind of the consumer. And if you're more influential in that space to that consumer, they try to elevate your website ahead of others. And you do that through on-page and off-page SEO, content, where you can rank. So say your website ranks for organic, you're running Google advertisements. So You're in the map pack for local services for Google. There's all these areas where you can rank. But if somebody Googles how much does window replacement cost, and your keyword search, if you're not paying enough money to be ranked from an advertising perspective on that Google inquiry or search query, you might have a YouTube video where you, as the owner of the business, explain what goes into the cost of windows. And now you're like, as a consumer, just picture this. If I'm Googling something like, how much does garage floor coating cost? Because I want to know. I don't know that. That's not my area of expertise. I go and I Google it and I see a sponsored ad. Well, I'm a marketer, so I'm like, well, whatever. Yeah. I'm going to need to click on so many of those. Like, I'm going to look at 10 different companies, and they're never going to give you the price in their website. That's not how it works. I'm not setting up 10 different estimates, right? What I'll go to that YouTube video there, and I'll be like, looks like they're going to explain it right there. Boom. I click on it. And then at the end, you have a strong call to action, and it's a lead gen for you, because you say, if you want a down to the penny quote on your garage, if you want to see how much this will cost in your home, click like and subscribe for future content like this, but also fill out the form, and we'd love to be able to come out there and give you the down to the penny quote that's good for an entire year. Yeah. Thanks for subscribing, and as always, at Matrix Home Solutions, it's built for you.
I love it.
Exactly. What's more powerful?
I just want to speak to evergreen content because, again, we're doing this podcast. I just want to be clear. This podcast is not to sell you anything, although I'd love to welcome you to the Grosso University family. And we did have a commercial in the middle of this because it's a long podcast. But I did a podcast with Jordan Belfort at the Wolf of Wall Street in 2019. And so that's 5 years ago. And I'm still getting people calling us in the present time saying, I saw your podcast with Jordan Belfort and I was highly impressed and I want to learn more about your company. So that's what we mean by evergreen. You push this stuff out there. You don't know how, when, why they're going to come across this video content of yours. It could be some random search they're doing, but when they come across it, again, it could be that moment where all of a sudden now they're in your funnel, and now all of a sudden they're learning more. Now they're in your website. Now they're filling out a form, and all of a sudden you got a lead. Yeah. But yeah, push that stuff out there. And I talked to some companies where they have their own podcasts, and they're like, the leads we get from our podcast or our radio show, because we're the trusted contractor in our territory for whatever product or service, we're the person that they come to learn what they think they need to know or get advice from. There's like a 10 out of 10 level of trust now. The moment they go into the house, they're basically like taking their order. Like they're already like, I want to work with you before we even step foot into the house. So I think that's important. So obviously there's no one silver bullet to running a business, to running profitable. And we all learn things through trial and error along the way. But what you've done there at Matrix, what are you pacing this year?
We'll do 80 plus.
80 million. And what's your goal for the next 2025?
$100 million.
$100 million, right? So obviously there's a lot of uncertainty about the future, but is there any doubt in your mind you're going to hit $100 million?
No, we'll do it. And, at the end of the day, it's just all that evergreen stuff that we're talking about. But, we have some of the best sales reps in the industry, and it's that cohesive
They're
nature.
one-call closing six-figure basements routinely, which a lot of people, I tell it to people, they don't believe it.
That's crazy.
How can you sell a six-figure design-build project in a one-call close? Yeah. But they do it all.
These guys are wild. We see them rolling in every day, and it's just 105,000, 300,000. It's crazy. Yeah. And we've and that's a matter of like 3 to 4 hours. So we're sitting down with that homeowner, and some of these are coming from Canvas now. That's the thing that blows me away.
Yeah, how do you canvas for a basement? You can't see it.
I mean, honestly, sometimes you can look around and see the hopper windows, or you can see the egress window, and it's got the sticker up. Usually we're going into new builds too, so that we go around projects that we had previously, different things like that. But it's just talking to a homeowner, being influential, setting a next day appointment, going in there and selling a $150,000 basement. Doesn't make sense to me. Doesn't make sense. But we'll just keep doing it.
So obviously, amazing story. Lord knows we can talk for hours, and already have.
We already have.
But that's okay. So if there's any last advice that you can give owners of companies on how they could improve profitability, I guess what would you say is one simple area that they can start? We talked about canvassing, but just in general, what is the last advice you'd like to leave to the listener and how you can run a more profitable business?
Well, I think that it goes back to when we were talking about diversification. But if you're going to do it, again, not getting too tied to any one source, because it takes a lot of humility and lack of like holding on to pride. If you try something and it doesn't work, it can be to your detriment to hold on to that without.
And I see you guys doing that all the time, where you're constantly reanalyzing all your existing lead sources in detail and asking yourself the honest question: is this, I know it did before, but today, is this still giving us the return on investment that makes sense to continue throwing? And then you can't be afraid to cut those off when needed, you know?
And it's reevaluating software. It's because that's another thing. There's shiny new objects everywhere you turn. I know
That's
that
only going to increase with technology now. There's going to be
and I
more
go
and
to
more.
a conference and I come through with like 20 different companies, and they're just like, this is the best thing ever. And then you use it for like 2
World's
months.
greatest
You're like,
coffee.
this is don't get yourself involved in contracts that are more than 90 days, like month by month if you can. Because everything is the best thing since sliced bread, right? And then it's not. And it really, this is what I'll leave us with, because you got to spend money to make money though too. Because I'm not saying contract all of your sources, but I am saying if it's a turd, you're going to get rid of it quickly, right?
I just want to shout out Nathan Richmond, because
That's right.
his voice just came into my head, and he'll be on our podcast soon. But
And he said that. That's where I got that.
yeah,
from.
so Nathan Richmond was at the top 500, and he was on a panel, and they asked him, because they're asking everyone on the panel, if you could invest in one marketing source for your business, what would it be? And his answer was, I wouldn't. And they're like, okay, hypothetically though, if you did, which one would it? He's like, no, it would never happen. End of conversation. You got to diversify your marketing. Like you got to constantly, you can't put all your eggs in one basket. That'd be suicide, you know? And I see companies doing that right now, but we got to be open to change. We got to be willing to adapt, and we got to be willing to evolve, because if we're not embracing this new disruptive era of technology and AI and all this stuff going on, I promise you, you're going to get steamrolled by somebody that does. And this is the most common message that I'm hearing from people. It's not, AI will replace jobs. So let's just be honest, it will. But the thing we got to be most concerned about is people leveraging AI replacing you. So whether it's an employee, whether it's someone in a leadership role or owning a business, somebody that is leveraging AI will replace you, because you can't beat that productivity. And I was one of those guys, admittedly, that was resistant to change. I'm like, I don't trust this. I'm like, is this end of the world, apocalypse stuff? But I've been dipping my toe into it, and oh my gosh, like what you can do to streamline efficiency in so many areas. And now I'm developing these partnerships with these AI companies, and we're starting to implement them now. I'm like, would I rather have a call center of 10 people out? I got the space for it, as you know. Yeah. Or would I rather just have AI do it 24/7, 365 for 1/10 the price? Yeah. And not have to worry about it's crazy.
We're still in the infancy of it. I think it's going to get crazy. It's going to get crazy. It's gotten crazy
very quickly.
I've heard some of the first iterations, like going back only like 4 or 5 months, of phone representatives that are AI, and they're clunky and weird. Like we were trying to break these things. Me and a colleague of mine just got together recently, and we, I'm not going to shout out any companies, but there was a phone representative AI Matt Burke had sent over to me, and we broke it. I mean, I made that thing confused, man, because I had him in the background shouting things like you typically would have in a household, like, hey, where'd the dog go? Stuff like that. So it's just breaking it, right? So it's not there yet, but yes, you don't need to necessarily be an early adopter, but you do need to have your mind open to things, because just because it's the way you've done things in the past, it's not going to be the best. But the thing that I was going to leave you with is, you got to spend money to make money. I think a lot of business owners, and I say this from experience working with a lot of business owners, I say it from talking to business owners, talking to CMOs, talking to literally marketing professions across the country. They're trying to get filet on like a hamburger budget though too. You know what I'm saying? You got to be able to pump in. And I'm not talking about money being the only currency, okay? Like I always look at my time is probably the most important currency that I have at the moment. Like money, okay, that comes and goes, right? There's going to be more if you kind of dedicate yourself to being efficient and profitable. The money's going to be there, okay? And if you make yourself indispensable from a skill set level, the money is going to be there. Currency can include time, effort, right? Not just time, but effort, time, and then dollars, right? A lot of people will put the requisite dollars into a project like a Canvas team or a new marketing source or a new AI platform, but they don't put it in the other currencies, right? They're spending. That's their hamburger budget. They might have the filet budget for the money they're willing to dedicate to that, but they don't have the time nor the ability to put in the effort in an efficient manner to really make that work. And then it's always the platform. It's always the lead source. It's always pushing the buck on success to something that's not controlled by you, right? And that's just a defeatist, that's a loser's mentality. And that's what I see with a lot of people is like, you need to quantify before you jump into anything how much currency you need. Like in those three areas, it's like time, money, or effort. And if you fall short in those, then don't do it because you're not going to get your money's worth. You're not going to get your ROI. It could work for the person down the street because, and I'm not saying you have to put that in there personally, but if you want to be able to spend the money on that, but if you don't have the time nor the effort, you can't be hesitant to increase your budget to bring somebody on that manages that and that's tied to the KPI of the performance of that lead source. Because otherwise, don't do it. That's where you said, like, you have these large companies, and I think this is the thing. Larger companies, and I've run into a ton of them, where they're never hesitant to throw money at a problem, but paying people to manage it, they are hesitant for whatever reason, because managing people is difficult. Yeah. It takes effort, right? That currency, they're like, well, I'm okay with money being the currency here, but effort, whatever. So if you don't have that effort to manage that person, it's difficult. But you have to tie people to the metrics and tie people to that performance if you want it to be successful. Yeah. And that's really what it's all about. I think that's why we've been successful and we will continue to be successful. I'm completely assessing not only the money that it takes, because ROI is great, but we do have that larger ticket, so we get kind of bailed out with that sometimes too, where you can have one gigantic basement sale and it'll kind of shield you from the fact that you're not very efficient on these lead sources. And that we didn't even get into any of the call center stuff, right? You could have the best lead source on the face of the planet, but if your call center is not following scripts and not following processes, you're screwed there too. Correct. And do you have the resources dedicated, the hamburger budget? You want filet, but you got hamburger budget in your call center, and you got just one person over there pounding the phones, or, it's just, I don't know. It's hilarious sometimes to see what people are willing to spend money on and what people are not. And I think you need to assess that and really open your eyes to, what it takes to be successful. If it is just sheer strength and heavy lifting, there's still a place for that, but not so much anymore. It's getting less and less likely that you're going to just be by like sheer willpower and spend of money that you'll be successful. So
excellent. Well, obviously amazing information. I want to thank you again for driving all the way down here to share your wisdom with the world. Amazing life story, and I have no doubt we're going to continue to bring you back on the show as you continue to grow and flourish in your career. So hopefully you'll come back again.
Ran out of whiskey in an hour.
Yeah, we'll have more. But again, you're obviously the living definition of someone that's persevered through a lot of obstacles, a lot of challenges, and you continue to learn along the way. It's kind of like a heat-seeking missile, right? You course correct as you go, you take away what you can, but you continue to move forward. And again, that's important, right? As we grow and develop as leaders, as we grow up and develop as people, is take all of our life experiences and take the best and, delete the stuff that's not going to serve you, because there's a lot of that, right? We can reflect back on it as we're, talking about our past. It was
important at the time.
It was important at the time, yeah. But amazing stuff. And again, congratulations to your promotion there to Chief Marketing Officer. And I'm going to have Nick Richmond on the podcast here very shortly as well. But yeah, congrats to all success at Matrix Home Solutions. And again, hopefully you guys took away some good golden nuggets on this podcast here with Joshua Yager. Remember, he was top 40 under 40, one of the brightest minds. He's spoken at many of my events. And as always, at the Profits for Sanity podcast, I'm going to have Josh Yager finish this for me. Volume is for vanity, and
Profits are for sanity.
all right, we'll go ahead and see you on the next one. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you.